Greetings, friends. My name is Paul Thompson. I'm the pastor at Huntersville United Methodist Church, and I'm with my good friend and colleague, and Steve Autrey. Steve Autrey. He hadn't got any better looking than yesterday, but we're here together.
We're back.
We're back.
Wearing the same clothes, actually.
We're in the same clothes. Funny how that works. So today we're going to dive into our second conversation as we walk through Holy Week with Jesus, the events of his last week. And today, on this Tuesday, we want to talk about where Jesus spent a good bit of the last week of his life is in that temple compound area. And so I want to read with you and for you from Mark chapter 11, beginning at chapter 27. And I want you to focus in with us for a moment on the idea of authority, where Jesus gets his authority, and his authority is questioned by those religious authorities who thought they were the religious authorities. So from Mark chapter 11 at verse 27. Again, they, meaning Jesus and his disciples, came to Jerusalem. As he was walking in the temple, the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders came to him and said, "By what authority are you doing these things? Who gave you the authority to do them?" Jesus said to them, "Well, I will ask you one question. Answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I do these things. Did the baptism of John come from heaven, or was it of human origin? Answer me." Well, they argued with one another. "If we say from heaven," he will say, "well, then why did you not believe him? But shall we say of human origin?" They were afraid of the crowd, for all regarded John as truly a prophet. So they answered Jesus, "Well, we don't know." And Jesus said to them, "Well, neither will I tell you by what authority I am doing these things." So, Steve, as we think about Jesus and this question of authority, authority is huge in the Gospel of Mark. Where all do we hear places about authority and questions about authority in Mark's Gospel?
Well, I believe early on, Jesus is teaching in the synagogue. And they're like, "But where does he get this from?" Right? He's not a seminary grad. He doesn't have a bunch of degrees on his wall like you do.
Yeah, doesn't
right?
wear the stole
and the robe. And,
right.
And they don't get it. But what's interesting in that is, if you remember, he cast out a demon, and the demon recognizes Jesus' authority. So you've got this interplay of those who should see Jesus for who he is don't, and often those who the good religious leaders of the day would consider far away from God, some completely out of God's realm, actually do see him. And so Jesus' authority is a question mark for them. They don't understand, why are the crowds clamoring after him? Why are people following him? He has no business doing this work. He's an unlicensed, uncredentialed preacher.
Yeah, I think when we teach disciple Bible study, I love this part. People question and they say, well, how do we recognize the Bible as what it is? There are lots of other religious writings, even about Jesus, that are not included in the Bible. Why do we recognize as this having authority the Scriptures have? And one of the things that we come to recognize is we as human beings, we don't give the Bible its authority. We recognize its authority. We recognize that the Scriptures, they speak the word of truth. And it goes above and beyond our own experience. We recognize these words are the word of life. And so we don't give the Bible its authority, we simply recognize it. And it's that same way, I think, with people that we meet. You may meet someone who has the credential, who has the honorary, who has the title. But often it's not that person who really has the authority. It's often other people who people turn to in times of crisis, when leadership is needed. Those are the people who have the real authority.
Who's your go-to? And in this case, the religious leaders were really struggling with Jesus. They were incensed at him. Remember, just the day before, he had caused a stir in the temple. He had disrupted the flow of cash into their coffers. He had undermined an economic system, and he was a true threat to their very existence, because we have to remember, when Jesus goes into Jerusalem, And what we celebrate on Palm Sunday, he is coming for Passover, which is a religious holiday on the Jewish calendar that marks the escape or the overthrow by the Jews, the slaves at the time, of an empire, the Egyptian Empire. And so to be celebrating Passover, which celebrates a rebellion of sorts, the Romans were very, very wary of this. And because the population of Jerusalem went from some 40,000 people, it swelled to about 250,000 people. And anything could set off a riot, anything could set off a rebellion, anything could cause a military uprising. And the religious authorities definitely didn't want that because they had a fairly cozy relationship with the Romans to keep them in power. And Jesus is threatening all of this, so they're questioning his authority to try to establish what they see as good order.
So I think one of the questions we ask ourselves in relation to this question of authority is, who has authority in our lives? Who do we give authority over us? We have to grant that. For Jesus, it was not something that Jesus demanded. He simply was so confident, so comfortable in who he was and his assurance that he is the Son of God, who has come not to condemn, not to judge, not to make people feel bad about themselves, but to come and offer them a way of life, of grace and forgiveness that will lead to the abundant life.
Well, and yesterday you mentioned that he set his face towards Jerusalem. He kept clear about his mission. He didn't let things distract him. So many times we can get, we can lack clarity in our purpose. We can let ourselves become dissuaded from what we're supposed to be about. And when that happens, we lose authority in our own lives. And we can, at times, cede authority to other people. And I think when we do that, if we're giving authority to anyone else other than Christ, then we're going to be following the wrong things. And we've seen people do that with cable news outlets, to their favorite host, whether it be on the left or on the right, with voices that have influenced them to the point where they have gone far off course. And we have to be careful with that. It's just a reality of the world we live in, because everywhere you look, someone is trying to tell you what you're supposed to be about, what you're supposed to buy, what you're supposed to believe, what you're supposed to do. And so we have to stay on course and on our mission. And part of what we were hoping to do with this time of devotion is to focus the church, the respective churches, congregations we serve, on who Jesus is and what he does during this last week that is so crucial to our faith, which is show us very clearly who God is and what is at the heart of, or rather, to show us God's own heart.
And Jesus always says, it's not always learn from me, but follow me. And I think that's the critical call for us today. How do we follow Jesus in especially this last week of life that will end up with a crucifixion, but ultimately a resurrection? And that's the key.
Well, it's also a supreme act of courage. Jesus isn't afraid to go right to the heart of the problem. He doesn't avoid the temple, right? I mean, yesterday he turned over the tables. He has to know they're not happy with him, but he goes right back. He's right back, and he's like, "Here I am. I'm going to tell you the truth. You don't want to hear it. I'm going to tell it anyway," which is pretty remarkable. I would encourage you to go ahead and read on from this, because Jesus takes this opportunity to do, Mark records Jesus doing an extended period of teaching while he's in the temple. There are a lot of interactions between him and the temple authorities, him and those who are curious about who he is on Tuesday of Holy Week. So take some time, read through that for your own edification and your own Bible study. Well, Paul, thank you for the time today.
Man,
anything you want to add in closing about Tuesday?
I'm just grateful that folks are joining us. Hope that as you make preparation to join in the community of faith, as we gather on services on Thursday, as we gather for services on Friday to remember the crucifixion, and then ultimately, obviously, hope everybody gets together and celebrates the resurrection story on Sunday morning.
And a thank you for being a part of this, because it is so easy to leave the hosannas of Palm Sunday and go directly to the resurrection of Easter. We don't want to do that because this matters. It matters that we journey with Jesus through this week so that we don't avoid the pain that he experiences.
You can't have a resurrection if you don't have a death.
Right. So we're hoping you will join us again tomorrow, and we look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you.